February 13, 1945. Dresden was swollen with refugees. They had come from the east. From Silesia? From villages already crushed by the Soviet advance. Women with suitcases. Children wrapped in blankets. Elderly men who could barely walk. The city was overcrowded, but calm. Hospitals overflowed. Schools housed displaced families. The train station never rested. Dresden had been spared most of the war. People believed it would remain that way. It was known for its Baroque beauty, its opera house, its churches, its art. Not factories, not trenches. That belief died at 10:03 p.m. Sirens wailed. Some rolled their eyes. Dresden had heard warnings before. Bombers passed overhead, toward Berlin, toward Leipzig, toward someone else. This time, they were not passing. Above the cloud cover, nearly 800 aircraft from Britain's Royal Air Force moved in formation. Their crews had been briefed hours earlier. Maps unfolded. Target grids marked. The goal was not precision. The goal was ignition. Pathfinder planes dropped bright flares. Red and green markers floated down through the darkness, painting the city center with light. Then the first high-explosive bombs hit. They didn't burn. They shattered. Roofs ripped open. Windows exploded inward. Water mains cracked beneath the streets. Gas lines ruptured. The city's skin was peeled back. Minutes later, the second layer fell. Thousands of incendiary bombs. Small, magnesium-filled cylinders designed to start fires everywhere at once. They pierced attics, landed in curtains, rolled under furniture, burst into white heat. Fire crews tried to respond, but the earlier explosions had destroyed the water pressure. Hoses sputtered dry. The first wave lasted less than half an hour. Then it stopped. And for a moment, there was hope. People emerged from shelters to assess damage. Flames burned in dozens of places. But nothing seemed unstoppable. They were wrong. At 1:23 a.m., the second wave arrived. This time, the city was already burning. The bombers dropped more explosives, more incendiaries, directly into growing fires. Separate blazes merged. Streets became corridors of heat. Then something changed. The fires stopped behaving like fires. They began behaving like a storm. Temperatures surged beyond 1,000 degrees Celsius. Hot air rose violently, pulling cooler air inward from every direction. Winds accelerated. Oxygen rushed toward the flames at hurricane force. The firestorm had formed. People in open streets were knocked down by the wind. Some were pulled toward burning buildings, as if dragged. In cellars and air raid shelters, air thinned rapidly. Oxygen was being consumed above them. Candles flickered and died. People struggled to breathe. In one shelter near the Altmarkt, hundreds had packed inside. The door was sealed. As oxygen dropped, those closest to the entrance collapsed first. Others tried to force it open for fresh air. When it finally opened, superheated air blasted in. Clothing ignited instantly. Inside, people suffocated sitting upright, pressed against one another. Many were later found with no visible wounds. They had simply run out of air. Outside, asphalt softened. Tram cables sagged and snapped. Entire blocks collapsed inward, feeding the flames with timber and furniture and fabric. A mother ran, carrying her 2 children toward the Elbe River. Sparks rained down like metal snow. Her coat caught fire. She threw herself to the ground, rolling. The wind pushed flames across her back faster than she could smother them. People jumped into fountains. into ponds, into the river. Some survived by submerging their faces between breaths. Others drowned in panic. Some died from the heat alone. The noise was not just explosions. It was a roar. A continuous, low, consuming roar. As if the city itself was inhaling and exhaling fire. By dawn, central Dresden was a single burning basin. But the attacks were not finished. Late morning, February 14. American bombers approached. The smoke column from the night before rose thousands of meters into the sky, visible from miles away. They targeted rail yards and remaining infrastructure. For survivors trying to flee the city, the nightmare restarted. Bridges were jammed with civilians. Bombs fell near railway lines where refugee trains stood motionless. Some carriages caught fire, with passengers still inside. Hospitals that had survived the night were struck in daylight. Medical staff worked in parks and open fields. They had no anesthesia left. No sterile equipment. Bandages were torn from bedsheets. Burn victims were unrecognizable. Skin blackened. Faces swollen beyond identity. Families searched for one another using scraps of paper pinned to boards. Names written in shaking hands. Many were never claimed. Bodies were collected into piles in public squares. Identification became impossible. Entire families had vanished inside collapsed buildings. Mass cremations began within days to prevent disease. The heat of the pyres rose again, days after the firestorm had ended. The official death toll would later settle around 25,000. Some believed it higher. Some argued lower. But numbers did not capture what happened inside those hours. Dresden had not been a frontline trench. It had been a shelter. A place people fled to. And it became a furnace. The war in Europe was almost over. Germany had already bombed cities across the continent. London had burned. Warsaw had been destroyed. Rotterdam leveled. Total war had erased the line between soldier and civilian long before Dresden. But for those inside the city that night, context did not cool the flames. 3 months later, Germany surrendered. Dresden remained, but hollowed. Landmarks reduced to skeletal walls. The Great Frauenkirche collapsed days after the bombing, its stones weakened by heat. Snow fell weeks later, turning grey as it touched the ash-covered streets. Survivors walked through neighborhoods they no longer recognized. Familiar routes erased. Entire addresses gone. Children who had escaped one advancing army died in the path of another's aircraft. There were no speeches that night. No surrender documents. Just heat, wind, and fire pulling oxygen from the lungs of a city. Dresden would rebuild over decades. But those who survived the firestorm remembered something else. They remembered the sound. The moment air itself seemed to burn. And the sky, once just darkness above them, turned into the weapon.